government have a constitutional duty to interact with the public and assist the public with access to basic services.
Thank you so much for joining us on Parliament Television and Parliament Radio. Your favorite program is back, and this is a SDG and U program. It is a program that looks at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Today, we look at a very interesting goal, and this is goal number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. For your information, this goal is made up of 5 targets and 3 means of implementation. And these focuses on sustainable and resilient infrastructure and industrialization. And another big component of this goal is science, research, technology, and innovation. My name is Paul Ndovi, and this program is in partnership with the United Nations. My sign language interpreter for today is Chola Kauma. And I do have a very interesting panel this morning. I have Dr. Engineer Aaron Mwanza, who is a Kaumbwe Member of Parliament. Doc, thank you so much for joining us on Parliament Radio and Parliament Television.
Thank you so much, and nice to have me around.
How are the people of Kaumbwe doing?
Well, Kaumbwe constituency is one of the rural constituencies in the country, and it is one of the least developed constituencies in Zambia. It has a population of about 60,000 people.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So
I know we'll get into details and to find out how they are faring when it comes to SDG number 9. The people of Kaumbwe, looking at what we've highlighted, it is the least developed country, and SDG 9 is about development.
Yes.
I also do have Mrs. Samantha Malambo, Officer in Charge, United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF Zambia. Thank you so much. How is UNCDF doing?
UNCDF is great, thank you.
All right.
Always trying to mobilize capital for development.
And I also have another representative from the United Nations family, and this is Mr. Maziko Piri, who is Country Program Coordinator, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO in short, that's Zambia. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us.
I'll start with you. They say ladies first, and we're privileged to have you as the only lady here. Maybe you can begin. What is your role as going by your title, which is Officer in Charge, United Capital Development Fund, Zambia?
I mean, my role is really to coordinate the work of UNCDF in Zambia, we have a team of about 5 staff in country, working quite closely with our regional support, our global support, but also liaising quite closely with our government partners. We work very strongly with our Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Technology, and a few other key ministries, key line ministries, and other partners in development, our donors, Sweden being one of them. Yeah, so it's essentially just coordinating the work of UNCDF in Zambia.
What kind of capital project do you embark on as you work with these partners, the Zambian government?
Yes, so our role as UNCDF is primarily to mobilize finance for the purpose of development, and that has taken different forms across the years. When we started out in 2015, we started out with a heavy focus on financial inclusion for development. Within that, still focusing on digital financial solutions. Okay. In 2018, we pivoted to now talk about what we call inclusive digital economies, and within that we're essentially trying to mobilize capital for the growth of different sectors in the country, from energy, health, agriculture, etc. And now we have a very strong focus both on still financial inclusion for the individual, but also access to finance for SMEs as well as local government implementers.
Okay. Mr. Perry, you're coming from UNIDO.
Yes.
What does your title entail? Looking at you being being a country program coordinator for United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and what is this UN family all about, this agency all about?
Well, thank you very much. Well, UNIDO has been there for quite a long time, since 1966, and it is basically a specialized agency that deals with industrialization for the UN. And our role in Zambia is to ensure that we support the development agenda of the government, in this case the industrialization agenda, which has been spelled out clearly in the East National Development Plan. So we provide the capacity to ensure that those agenda and targets are met. So we support the government to ensure that they industrialize. So as you know, the government has got a very big agenda in terms of manufacturing. So we provide those services to ensure that the country attains those goals. And I will coordinate between the government institutions that are relevant to industry, and probably 17 government institutions that are involved in, but we need to have a coordinated approach, and that is what my main role is, and to ensure that we connect with the specialists at UNIDO to support that cause. Okay. So basically that is what UNIDO is doing.
All right, after establishing what my panelists are involved in, we'll be able to read your text messages as well. So we'll be accorded that opportunity to send in text messages. The number that we are using for those text messages is 078772801. Today, we are discussing SDG number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Maybe I'll get back to Madam Malambo. What does this go all about? Go number 9.
Sure, great. SDG 9 is all about highlighting the 3 important aspects of sustainable development. One is building resilient infrastructure. And that is ranging for every sector, ranging from energy all the way up to ICT. Is this infrastructure in place? Is it resilient in its nature? How do we have downtimes? How quickly are those downtimes addressed, and so on? Is this infrastructure accessible and usable by all segments of our population? The second important aspect is promoting sustainable industrialization. And we say sustainable because for a lot of countries like ours that are still developing, many of our industries are either in nascent or growing stages. And it's important that as we promote the growth of those industries, we think about, or we factor in some of the issues related to how they impact climate and how impacts on future generations and so on. And then the final component is fostering innovation. And with that, we're really talking about some of the aspects that you mentioned: science, research, technology. How do we leverage some of these to improve the experiences, whether it's in education, whether it's in health, whether it's in how we do business or how we communicate, how we access different services? How do we leverage research, innovation, technology to improve some of those experiences?
All right. Doc, you are an engineer by profession, and you've worked in West Africa and in Asia as well. How would you rate Zambia in terms of how is it faring in realizing goal number 9?
Well, this is a very interesting question because my experience, my work experience, of course, I've lived and worked in China for 25 years, and in West Africa, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Kenya, and so on. My expertise is railway engineering, transportation system, so to say. So Zambia, on the upfront of the SDG, towards SDG 9, we are faring, we are fair, pretty well. But there are a lot of challenges and nitty-gritties in terms of sensitization, more especially to government institutions, including our own parliament here.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
You're talking about you being a specialist in railway transportation. How does that make you feel, looking at how the country is struggling when it comes to the railway network in our country? We've heard government in, government out complaining about the road infrastructure being destroyed by the haulage that we use on our Zambian roads. How does that make you feel, being an engineer in that field, and the country where you are is not doing well in that sector?
Well, really, really for sure, it's a thorn in the flesh, and I would love to bring my expertise to fruition in my country. That is how I decided to come back to join government. Railway infrastructure, I can just say transportation infrastructure, needs to be an integrated system. That is the roads, aviation, as well as the railway lines. So Zambia has done fairly well, and I think we are going towards better direction in terms of road infrastructure. There are a lot of investments and a lot of programs supporting the road infrastructure, but we haven't done very well in the railway sector, because I think the biggest problem, of course, railway infrastructure is requires very high capital intensive systems. And if we're talking about like PPP projects, there are a lot of factors that need to be considered. So like Zambia, for example, I mean, we have had only the 2 railway lines systems that we have, Zambia Railways and Tazara, built so many years ago. And no improvement in the coming years.
All right, Mr. Perry, what is the role of industries in development and achievement of SDG 9?
Well, first of all, just to understand how we support achievement of SDG 9, I'm going to first of all elaborate what industrialization is. So industrialization is a process of shifting the focus from primary commodities to transform the economy using manufacturing. So we focus on how do we transform the economy from dependency on primary commodities to manufacturing, which we can coin value addition. So there's a lot of processes that have to be put in place, first of all, to achieve that. The National Development Plan is very clear in its strategic area of economic transformation and job creation, and underlines industrialization to be achieved. So our MP mentioned one of the 3 components of industrialization, which is infrastructure: roads, water, energy, and telecommunication. So without access roads, you cannot industrialize. Also, we talk about industry, which is manufacturing and human capital as well. And also we talk about innovation, which is technology transfer. There are many components, but these are the main ones that the country is focusing on. So, the mandate of UNIDO is to ensure that we promote and accelerate inclusive and sustainable industrial development. So with that, we are the primary organization that has to drive SDG 9, which is, as Mr. Mansa mentioned, and also MP. We have to focus on 2 things, more or less. One is manufacturing, which is very key to drive the economy. It is actually the factor to economic growth is manufacturing. You may know that the country at the moment is more of agriculture production, but we have to be able to create the market for the agricultural produce, which is manufacturing. With that, you increase the incomes of the farmers, but also create jobs in the manufacturing sector. So our role is to ensure that we create the jobs and reduce poverty in the country. So as a UN, we always focus on poverty reduction.
I know you've been in existence for quite some time,
yes.
And in the late 90s, we've seen a reduction in terms of industrial companies or industries in our country. But how does that make you feel as UNIDO, seeing not having enough industry? Because we've talked about a very important component, value addition. We still, as a country, export raw materials, raw produce to other countries. Then they come back to our country as already added value added already, and we start buying at a higher price. How does that make you feel as UNIDO operating?
Well, that is very difficult because, like I mentioned, our mandate is to ensure that we support poverty reduction. And we are seeing that the cost of living is going higher and higher. And the solution here is to create more industries. We may not revive the existing industries because they probably were under a different mandate, but we have to create the industries in a new generation. And these are small, medium enterprises, which we support more or less. So it really, we understand, you know, the economic trajectory that the country has been through, the COVID-19 pandemic that came through that crippled the entire economy. So with those things, you need to, you know, support the government to prioritize policies that respond to economic recovery and sustainability. Okay. So that is where we try to support and try to build more industries to get to a level where Zambia should be in terms of a middle-income country.
Doc, before I move on to Samantha, what should members of parliament do to make sure that we have more industries in our country to realize what UNIDO is talking about, or what UNIDO is championing?
Of course, we need, first of all, these collaborating partners need to join with our research department to bring in SDG programs in our committee meetings, because I'm sure not most of the members of parliament are conversant with SDGs. We've seen them around, and the posters around, and we've done our own research, but we don't know in each institution, in each sector of the economy, what are the targets that Zambia has set. And we have a very good platform at Parliament where we're in different committees. In those committees, we should have SDG topics included so that we provide oversight.
Okay. All right, Samantha, we've seen Zambia doing well when it comes to access to phone, access to internet in our country. Now, maybe the question that would be, how would you rate access to mobile phone in Zambia, and why is it important for this development?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's very important for development, especially when you view the phone not only as a tool for communication, but as a tool for delivering key information, key products, key services across sectors. I think the recent ZICTA ICT survey highlighted about 51% of our population, or the adult population, owns mobile phones, and of that, about 39% are smartphones. So if you're viewing the mobile phone as a tool for delivery, whether it's financial services or it's education information, or in our current kind of anthrax outbreak, delivering information about the disease, mitigation measures, and so on, only about 51% of the population is getting that information. And yes, I acknowledge, I think, other channels of spreading that information, television, community radio, and so on. But if we view the phone not only as a method of communication, but as a tool for accessing services, for accessing information, it's really important that we enable methods of more of our population to own mobile phones. So developing affordable pathways to getting mobile phones, developing even in industry, right? Developing industries around providing that technology in country, and so on.
I know my grandmother in Kaumbwe may not understand. How is access to mobile phone linked to SDG 9?
Especially when we speak about infrastructure, is that phone infrastructure available within your local community, whether it's a cell phone tower or it's internet or it's broadband? When we speak about industrialization, do we have local industries that are either producing phones or adding value? When we speak about innovation, even something as simple as schooling or your healthcare facility, are you able to access beyond the classroom? Are you able to access information in relation to your education? Are you able to access information in relation to healthcare, where there might not be a health post within maybe a 5-mile radius? So it's really key in terms of, especially from an accessibility point of view, in enabling more people who may not be physically present around a product or service to be able to access it.
All right, Mr. Perry, you talked about small-scale industries, a big part of this economy, and also how they contribute to the development of this country. But how is UNIDO helping these small-scale industries to contribute to the growth of the economy?
Well, yes. Thank you very much for that question. Very, very pertinent. Samantha mentioned, the importance of finance, first of all. The two components that we look at in terms of supporting SMEs. First of all, they need to be able to have access to finance to grow. And secondly, they need to have the capacity to be able to grow. while CDF looks at the financial side, we look at the capacity part. How will they be able to be positioned well to access the finance? One, the first thing that we do with the small medium enterprise is that we are looking at change. Is the first thing that we have to look at. Change. Their production systems now, are they able to meet the market? So we have to look at how do we increase their production system, their processes. How are they able to connect to the internet for them to be able to do business? And how are they able to innovate their processes in order for them to be more competitive? So basically, essentially, UNIDO supports SMEs to become more competitive in the economy. Secondly, it's the same that we have to ensure that they're able to compete, meaning we have to support them to increase their quantities of production and quality of the products to be able to be bought by the market. So essentially, the SME will only do business if the market is able to get their products. So that is essentially what we try to do with SMEs.
Okay.
Yeah. And then while we put this together, we want to ensure that they're able to access the finances and be able to use them to grow. So basically, that is what UNIDO tries to support the SMEs in the country. So with the capacity building to ensure that they become experts in what they do. So we do provide capacity building, which we refer to as technical cooperation. We do also support the government. It's not just the SMEs themselves, but we support the government to develop enabling policies for SMEs to thrive. So,
Doc, we've heard what UNIDO is doing when it comes to SMEs. I'm sure you do have SMEs in Kaumba constituency, it being a rural constituency. But how are you tapping in the initiatives of UNIDO as a member of parliament for Kaumbwe?
So sorry to say, really, for sure, it is a bit difficult to note the presence of UNIDO or these other international organizations in my constituency. But I know from the from the explanation that he has given, definitely they are supporting our SME, which is the main institution. And now it is up to us now to tap in those SMEs to capacity building, because yes, government has got a lot of programs that, such as this enhanced CDF and access to cheap capital for our people. So what I've noticed, and what I've noticed is that there's no capacity building for the SMEs to teach them about the business and why they are applying for a certain loan. So you find that I mean, we've got grants and then we've got soft loans. So my past experience in the past two years, 2022 and 2023, groups would get a loan or a grant, and they would just immediately share the money. Of course, we've got to strengthen the monitoring and evaluation systems, but you cannot monitor something that you did not mentor. You need, first of all, to mentor the groups, to teach them about business skills and why they should why they should access a loan. Of course, even when they're applying for that loan, it should be built in their mindset that I'm applying for this loan simply because I'm lacking capital. I'm looking for startup businesses, and all the risks that are there should be informed to the cooperatives, the organizations. Yeah.
I know, members of parliament, you've been talking about the increased CDF. How is CDF speaking to the realization of goal number 9?
Yeah, CDF actually, out of all the 17 goals, SDGs, I think we are speaking much to SDG number 9, because it is a game changer, more especially in rural constituencies, because we're talking about uplifting our dilapidated infrastructure, upgrading our dilapidated infrastructure. Most of our schools, our hospitals, water supply systems, they've been neglected for so many years. Now, with enhanced CDF, we are rolling out a lot of infrastructure. So that is about the hard infrastructure part. of SDG number 9. Then the same enhanced the CDF, coming to innovation and industrialization, more especially industrialization, in our own small scope through the disbursement of loans and the grants. All what we need to do is now to do capacity building and strengthen our monitoring and evaluation systems, performance systems. When we do appraisals of the projects, like right now we are preparing for project submissions for 2024 CDF. At this time, before we award, there is need to do a comprehensive evaluation to meet the groups and discuss, tell them about the risks and the advantages and how their business should contribute to the GDP, and how we, in that sense, they might not realize that they are contributing to SDG number 9, but through collaboration, they'll really realize that SDG number 9 is being, we're working towards SDG number 9.
I know Samantha and Mr. Perry talked about internet access to phones, and this will be a game changer once we do have people, a number of people having access to mobile phones, because everything is done on the phone now, but rural areas are having challenges to access connectivity when it comes to access to mobile phones. And one goal that you can help as a member of parliament is to lobby for infrastructure in terms of towers for these people to have access to such facilities. But I'll get to you. But let's accommodate our SMS facility there. You can be able to send in your text messages and ask a question or your contribution on 0978 772801. Let's see some of the text messages that we've been sending. We do have one text which is coming from Juma in Lundas in Eastern Province. Industrialization needs to be rolled out in rural Zambia if SDG 9 is to be realized. Thank you so much, Juma. I'm sure my panelists here will be able to respond to that. Samantha from Kafue, good morning, President and the panel. Enjoying the program. Thank you so much, Samantha, for letting us know that you're enjoying. Maybe you'd want to respond to the first one? Maybe Mr. Perry?
Well, thank you so much for that. That is a very, very important factor to achieve for the country. And to roll out to other areas, the Honorable MP mentioned a lot about infrastructure development, and that's what we need as part of driving SDG 9. That's one. Number two, he talked about the hard infrastructure, which is talked about transportation. I will also mention about soft infrastructure, which is human capital. We know that we need to take expertise and teach the young people how to do business in the rural areas, and that is how you take the SDG out, because someone has to be able to drive it in those areas, and it's the people who live there that will be able to drive it. So access to training, access to vocational institutions is important in the rural areas. Then with that, we should be able to expand towards that. I'm sure Samantha can add. So
would you say mobile operators are falling under the category of soft infrastructure?
That's communication. Yes, most definitely. It is a very important factor of SDG 9. You cannot, in the modern world, you cannot reach out to where they are, or they cannot receive finances, for example, to be able to invest in their businesses they're doing if they don't have access to funds to receive the funds.
All right. Samantha, you'd want to comment before I move on to the Member of Parliament for Kaumbwe?
Yeah, I think he's pretty much mentioned most of it. The only thing that I'll add is it's very important, as we're talking about sustainable development, for rural to really be at the forefront. I think we've seen, I'll use the example of digital financial solutions and mobile money, just because you brought up mobile money operators. We've seen that growth in very hyper-urban, densely populated areas, but the story really begins to change once you drive even just 20 kilometers outside of a hyper-urban area and you get into rural. You'll have have even just one mobile money agent serving up to a community of up to 4,000 farmers, for instance. And those challenges really begin to take shape in terms of how does an agent even manage float in that instance? How do you deliver finance to those populations? So there's really needs to be a strong focus on driving, whether it's hard or soft infrastructure, like they've mentioned, into the rural community.
All right. One of the targets under SDG 9 calls for significantly increased access to information and communications technology and the provision of universal and affordable access to the internet in least developed countries by 2020. 3 years after that target, how would you assess Zambia on the cost and access to internet?
On access to internet, there's some progress that's been made. Unfortunately, if you look at the overall figure, it's still fairly low. I think the recent Zicta ICT survey pegged it at 34% of our population is able to access and use the internet. So it's still a relatively low figure, but if you look at how we've moved over the last 5 years, there has been some progress. On the cost front, Southern Africa in general tends to have relatively high costs in terms of internet. Okay. But if you compare Zambia to other countries within our region, we have a fairly cheaper costs compared to other countries, thinking about Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and so on. But again, Southern Africa compared to Northern Africa, compared to Western Africa, has relatively higher costs. Okay. So there's still quite a lot we need to do in terms of bringing that cost down. Because again, it factors in terms of someone being able to access and pay for it, even in the rural community, where money is such a big... 5 kwacha may not mean money 5 kwacha may not mean much in an urban setting, but in a rural setting, it really can go much further.
You've brought quite an interesting aspect. Accessing affordability and stability is one thing. And in our country, we've heard people complaining about the stability of internet. You may access it, maybe at a very low, cheap price, but it's not stable. How does that make you feel looking at where we are as a country and realizing what we're discussing today?
It's really critical for us to crack that stability and resilience component, because it's one thing to take the infrastructure there. And the thing about technology is you don't think about it when it's working, right? But when you actually need to access a service and you can't, it's the most frustrating experience. And especially in rural communities, it only takes one bad experience. I think in urban settings, we might be a little bit more patient. I might try the call later and so on. But in a rural context, when you really need to access a service and that isn't working, it's a game changer. Right. So I think it's really critical for us to crack that resilience and stability component.
Doc, we've heard members of Parliament on the floor of the House lobbying for communication towers across the country. We've heard the Minister of Science and Technology clarifying and also sharing with members of Parliament government's position when it comes to rolling out infrastructure, when it comes to communication towers. How are you doing as Kaumbe constituency? Because all these, what we're discussing, will be a thing of the past once you have a number of communication towers in your constituency as Kaumbe.
Yeah, my constituency, we're not doing very fine in terms of communication towers, because, but as a Ministry of Science and Technology, they come up with a very nice program where they the minister actually at the floor of the house actually asked us to provide locations that we feel they should construct towers. We provided those locations and we sensitized the people. In Kaumbe constituency, I think I was allocated five towers, and I did sensitization to the people to look for the location of those towers. But I think what is happening is, of course, because of the fiscal space. We are waiting. I'm sure we'll receive our own share in the next few years. Definitely, communication, ICT, is the core platform for doing business. In my constituency, all these programs that government is rolling out, like FISIP, even these CDF loans and grants, everything is by the mobile phone. You cannot make any transaction without internet. So in my area, people would go to travel 45 kilometers to Petauke where they can access internet. Also banking services are in that district. In certain areas, just at the center of my constituency, we have got 2 towers. So that area, people have to travel long distances just to access, e-business. Okay. Furthermore, the contractors that are supposed to be engaged for CDF capital projects, community projects rather, government has gone digital. So we cannot leave these people behind. And we just have to bring them on board. So to participate in tenders, they have to access the internet, EGP. That EGP, most of our contractors, they don't understand. But we have to continue. We cannot leave them where they are. We need to continue helping them understand.
As a member of parliament who's well connected, worked for 25 years in China, how are you utilizing your connection to make sure that the people of Kaumbe benefit, engaging various stakeholders, cooperating partners, than just depending on government to erect towers in your constituency?
Yeah, exactly. I understand my government, I understand the fiscal position, so I am actively involved in engaging cooperating partners, writing a lot of proposals. Certain projects might not fit my constituency because of the certain requirement that investors put across. So I still roll out to the country as at large, because investors, they would want to invest, you look at a lot of other factors, for example, like transport and infrastructure. You're looking at what are the traffic volumes involved. Right now, I'm working on the Tazara Railway. Tazara Railway, because China, Zambia, and Tanzania have agreed to revitalize the Tazara Railway system. So I'm part of the Tazara experts, or Council of Experts, to actually roll out my experience on the same. Okay. So I'm actively involved. Every day I'm writing, I'm visiting offices to make the Chinese and the other Asian cooperating partners.
Mr. Perry, vocational training institutions are the ones that are very critical when it comes to SDG number 9, because we do have quite a number of graduates, year in, year out, graduating from these vocational training institutions. And these people, once they graduate, they wait on government to employ them. But how best can these people rely on themselves, start working on their own, so that they can also contribute to the realization of SDG number 9?
Well, thank you. That's a very pertinent question.
Because I ask this question because formal employment are very limited, and young people are just languishing with their papers. So how best can you help them realize their potential and contribute to the realization of SDG 9?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, we look at 2 aspects to that question. Number one, we have a skill gap between what the vocational training is providing and what the industry wants. The industry has moved on, away from, far away from what the vocational training is doing now. I'll give you an example of the mining sector. They're not able to employ any graduate to operate their machines at the moment, because the high technology now, those trainings are not done at vocational training. So it leads to high unemployment when they graduate. So first of all, what UNIDO has done is get into a PPPD. You know that the PPP is an old initiative where you get where there's an assumption that public goods are more efficiently delivered when they partner with the private sector. So what we have done as UNIDO is to bring the private sector into the vocational trainings and be able to now to support and start buying the infrastructure training and try to improve the curriculum. And then those same companies are the ones that are operating in the mines. So they are training them on the things that the mines use. Okay. So right now we've 500 graduates who all have employment in the mines, in the transport sector, and in the construction sector. 100% employment. So we have to close the skill gap first of all. We can look at the problem that they're not being employed, but I think the problem lies with their education. So first of all, we have addressed that. Now, secondly, those who have already graduated and they are not being able to employ, there's what you call self-employment. Looking at opportunities, there are two aspects of self-employment: entrepreneurship and business. They have to be proactive as persons, first of all. We can look at the government is not doing anything, but let's look at the person themselves. What are they doing? They have to be proactive to look at opportunities for them to do business and create businesses. Two ways: one, opportunities in the existing structure; the other way is entrepreneurship. How can they respond to a need that people are not able to? Do
we have an environment that will support business? Because we may not have an environment that will support business. And where are they going to do that business from? I think that's the question again.
Good. So the first thing that we look at in terms of the business is their capacity building, first of all. You know, the government has got resource centers across the country, which are providing a capacity building for business development services. They are providing business development services to ensure that those graduates who have come out and do not have the capacity know how to do business, first of all. So we are trying, as a UN organization, to support the government to upgrade those resource centers. That's one. So those resource centers, we want to connect the private sector also to the resource centers to be able to create the market for the self-employed. So they should be able to get information on what the market needs. We have online platforms that require online platform that need this opportunity for investments. We have to look at situations where the government is enabling. Where is the focus of the government on the youth? To join those programs that the government have. Okay. The government also, when you join those programs that the government have, you have CEEC that is also pushing to say we want to give you loans for aquaculture. You know, so those programs are very, very important, and they need to be linked even to the rural areas for them to access those opportunities. So individuals themselves, to conclude, they have to be proactive as well on their own capacity to harness these things.
Today we are discussing SDG 9, and let's get to our screens and see what we have received in terms of text messages. The number that we're using is 0978772801. Send that text message. Better still, you can also utilize our Facebook page, the National Assembly of Zambia. Like that page, let us know where you are watching us from. Let's get to our messages and see some of the text messages that we've received. This one comes from Tika from Chongwe. I'm following the program very well. Now I have a concern as we talk about development. It is also important that you should be considering road network and infrastructure improvement here in our area. Thank you so much, Tika from Chongwe. I'm sure my panel here is taking note of those concerns that you're raising. Let's move to the next text, if we do have. All right, seems like we do not have text. Okay, we have Chimwemwe all the way from Ndola. Can't we Zambians partner with China so that they help us in building skyscrapers in the provinces? Can't we Zambians partner with China so that they help us to build skyscrapers in the provinces? I'm sure Doc will be able to respond to that, having spent 25 years in China, and find out how a possibility of partnering with our Chinese counterpart. Good morning, enjoying the program. Thank you so much, George Mwale from Lusaka. No name there. This one reads, access to internet is very hard in villages. So what is the way forward? The communication problem. Thank you so much for that. This one also no name. Well, providers of internet are concentrating on availability of internet. They need to work on stability. Expanding on the poor quality service does not make sense. Rural areas are mostly hit hardly in stability of both internet and network. Thank you so much. The other one reads, good morning. Government must ensure the SDG number 9 is actualized by ensuring massive sensitization of the majority youths to have access to such loan facilities, and ensure they are taken through how to manage and pay back concern to our future generations. Thank you so much for that, for those text messages. Maybe Doc would want to take up, respond to somebody saying we partner with the Chinese. I know you did talk about it, that you've been writing and negotiating with the Chinese to help your constituents. Maybe a quick response.
Yeah, quick response is, of course, I'll take one that is talking about road network as well as a partnership with China. China is just one of those countries in the world that Zambia has enjoyed good bilateral cooperations. And you can bear me with witness, I think 1 or a month ago, government visited China. And there were a lot of investment pledges, almost $3.5 billion US. Right now, Chiwombo multi-facility economic zones, most of the economic zones that are around the country here, it's in partnership with the ZDA, because the Chinese have, accept most of the incentives that the Zambia Development Agency is providing. I'm sure my brother, what he means by skyscrapers, of course, is just, I think he's talking about industrial hubs. You know, we need to have a platform where we do business, and that they should be accessible and affordable for our people, for our SMEs to enter into those industrial hubs. So China has got a very big and very nice platform. Also, towards SDG number 9, there is what they call a BRI, Belt Road Initiative. This Belt Road Initiative is a program that is run by the Chinese government to open up, to make the whole world to be accessible to each other through road, air transport, railway transport, and so on and so forth. And Zambia is part of the BRI programs. So indeed, for sure, we are on course to partner with China. And quite a lot, China has almost $3 billion US investment in the country here, in terms of mining, in the mining sector, in the business sectors like shopping malls and small manufacturing industries. Concerning the road network in our constituencies, CDF is the answer. I've seen many constituencies are buying yellow machines, what we call yellow machines, for these road earth-moving equipment. But what is cardinal is there's need for maybe 2, 3, 4 constituencies that are close to each other to partner to buy one set of road equipment. And before we embark on this road rehabilitation or road construction, there's need to carry an infrastructure need assessment for your constituency. In my constituency, for example, immediately I went into office, I did carry out an infrastructure needs assessment in all sectors of the economy. How many kilometers of road network do I need in my constituency? And how do I prioritize the construction or the rehabilitation of these roads? And why? What is the economic value of this road? Is it just taking to production? Is it taking to production centers? Or just where people are living? And then I have almost 600 kilometers of road network in my constituency. I need 300 houses for teachers. I need about 10 bridges, 10 water crossing points, and so on and so forth. So when we're doing the community projects appraisal rather, there's need to prioritize. And we prioritize. Government has this platform for these monies, the CDF. So we are able to, just like I suggested, that if we we partner with the various constituencies to buy road equipment, all the constituents, they will understand as when their road will be under construction, because there will be a well-organized program through the prioritization, looking at the damage of the road and looking at the economic potential of that particular road to be rehabilitated.
Samantha, you would want to respond? I know you briefly talked about internet connectivity as well. Maybe our listener, could be our viewer there, joined a little bit late. Maybe just elaborate more on the stability, accessibility, importance of these stability and connectivity of the internet in our country.
I mean, stability and is very important in terms of the fact that if you're trying to use that channel to deliver a service, let's say, for example, a financial service, you're trying to deliver credit, let's say, to smallholder farmers, it's very important that the system works when it needs to. And we know that, with technology, systems do go down. That's not a new thing. It happens all over the world. But I think the critical part is how long is that system down, and what is the customer to do in the interim, right? I think in our cases, when systems go down, there's a bit of a longer wait period. There's a little less communication, and there's no direct way forward in terms of what can I then do as a customer if I still need to access this service. So as we're sorting out that stability component, I think that the key part is, one, reducing our downtimes, but two, just ensuring that the infrastructure works when we need it to and when individuals need to access those services. Otherwise, they'll just go different routes.
Mr. Perry, would you want to pick any text that came through?
Well, I think from my side, all has been picked up by the Honorable Minister, Honorable MP. For us, it's all about, the movement of goods and people has to be enabled for you to industrialize.
Okay.
So we have at least about 7 million people that don't have access to the economic roads that he mentioned. And without economic roads, we will not be able to export and to bring the raw materials closer to where it's being manufactured. So infrastructure is key, and this is something that needs to be concluded and start works on in order for us to support the government more and more support of SMEs that are out there to be able to be inclusive in the value chains.
All right. Samantha, what is the importance of ensuring equality of opportunities in financial inclusion if we are to make progress on achieving SDG number 9, and why?
Ensuring quality is really important. I'll cite the example of, I think our Ministry of Finance recently reviewed their National Financial Inclusion Strategy. And although we saw a positive movement in overall financial inclusion, we saw that especially the segments of our population that were most excluded, smallholder farmers, people dwelling in rural areas, workers in the informal sector, these saw a very marginal increase in financial inclusion. And we see that even as we move around the city, right? You see a lot of mobile money booths, agents in very hyper-urban areas, but again, once you move out into the rural areas, it becomes very sparse. And it's a nature of our population distribution, right? But if we're not deliberate about ensuring equality, that as we're increasing financial inclusion, it happens for the person in Lusaka as much as it happens for the person in our Honorable MP's constitution. Otherwise, we're just widening the gap.
Coming from two UN families, I would want to find out from you, both of you, how can members of parliament tap in the increased Constituency Development Fund that will speak to the realization of SDG number 9? I know there are a lot of competing needs in these constituencies, but our area of interest this morning is SDG 9. But how can they best utilize these funds in realizing SDG 9?
Our Honourable MP mentioned we've seen some developments in infrastructure at the community level. We've seen some schools being built. We've seen some health posts being built. And I'll speak to the innovation part because that's primarily where UNCDF focuses. I think the way that they can leverage, or the way that they can contribute to SDG 9 through that is ensuring that as we're putting up this infrastructure, we're enabling innovation in it. As we're putting up classroom blocks, for instance, are we enabling internet connectivity? Are we putting in modern infrastructure that's able to connect? Are we providing not just desks, but are we providing computers? Are we providing the skills for students to be able to use those computers and access information beyond the classroom? So I think it's just thinking forward as we're putting this infrastructure in. And it's you have to start somewhere, right? Where there's no health post, start with a health post. But I think the point is, as you're putting that infrastructure in, how will it fare 5-10 years down the line in terms of its use and leveraging of innovation?
Before I move on to Mr. Perry, is SDG 9 attainable by 2030?
It's a tough question. Yes, it's attainable, but when you look at some of our key figures, like the percentage of our population living in rural, the percentage that's accessing the internet, there's a very heavy lift that needs to happen in order for it to actually be attained.
All right. Mr. Perry, quickly, maybe the earlier question that I posed, how can members of parliament tap in, increase CDF that will speak to the realization of SDG 9?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, it all goes back to infrastructure. let's focus on what the rural areas do the most. So we don't want to change what the rural areas do. We have to enhance what they already do. So let's focus on agriculture, first of all. And the first thing in terms of infrastructure with agriculture is to increase their production. So where infrastructure is concerned, let's look at mechanization. We have to go on a robust support for mechanization in the agricultural sector. What we'll see then is the increased production will now bring industries to settle where there's more raw materials. Okay. So with that, you will see manufacturing industry start mushrooming in the rural areas. Okay. And that is how, in a nutshell, they would support the SDG 9 to move forward.
As you need, is this goal attainable by 2030? We are under 7 years to go.
Some elements are attainable.
I like the hesitation there.
Some elements, yes, some elements are. Of course, when it comes to connecting, it's very difficult because that takes a lot of investments. Mm-hmm. So it's about how much money can be put in the economy to support SDG 9, okay, both at the government and cooperating sector as well. So it is relatively attainable, but we'll have some gains. What's important is that we put in structures that will not be able to reverse those gains. Okay. That's what's key in terms of the achievement that we have to do. Yeah.
Doc, as we come to the end of this interesting topic, we're looking at SDG 9. Is this goal attainable?
Well, this goal is it's a complex equation actually. So it is attainable, but looking at the past trend in terms of the progress towards attaining the SDG number 9 goal, we are remaining within just under 7 years. There's need for the country, for under SDG 9, to set up targets. Okay. Because right now, I'm sure many viewers, even myself, I don't understand to what extent, what is the progress rate for Zambia in terms of SDG 9 in 2023. Mm-hmm. So we've got to be assisted to understand what progress we've made from the data that encompasses SDG 9, and in our constituencies, in 2024, these targets, the gap should be communicated to say 2024 we should achieve so many kilometers of road infrastructure, okay, and of this type of because we'll be working towards a non-target. We know the gap, but we don't understand the gap.
Let's get to the text messages. I know we do have 4 text messages that people have sent in. So before we wind up, let's acknowledge those of you that have sent in those text messages. This one comes from Kennedy from Nyakuluma. Hello, Mr. MP. That is a nice program you have there. Keep pushing. Thank you so much, Kennedy, for that text message. Shadrick Chongo from Ndola writes, good morning. I'm enjoying the program. This is when I have tuned in to the program. Yeah, you're late, Kennedy, but it's good to know that you're enjoying. This one reads, in Zambia we have got poor network, especially on phone calls and internet. What strategies has the government and its partners put in place to improve these problems, and for how long can it take to improve? The other one reads, for sure partner with China because road network is very important. Take a look at the Chipata Lundazi road, very bad. Thank you so much. So those are some of the text messages that you've sent in. I'd like to say thank you so much. Doc, Samantha and Mr. Perry, I must say thank you so much for finding time to wake up early and to come and discuss these very important issues, more especially to do with SDG 9.
Thank you very much.
We're done for today. We were looking at SDG number 9, which is industry, innovation and infrastructure. It also worth mentioning that this goal is made up of 5 targets and 3 means of implementation, and it focuses on sustainable and resilient infrastructure and industrialization. My guest on the program, I had Dr. Engineer Aaron Mwanza, who is a Kaumbwe Member of Parliament, and Ms. Samantha Malambo, Officer in Charge, United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF, Zambia, and Mr. Maziko Perry, Country Program Coordinator, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, in Zambia. My name is Posen Tindovi on behalf of my sign language interpreter, Chola Kauma, and not forgetting the entire production crew. We'll be back next week as we look at reducing inequality. That's goal number 10. God bless, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There were 59,439 registered cashew nut farmers in Western Province.
The situation as it is, I'm incapacitated.
The good people of Petauke, especially in Nika 1, where we don't have water.
This is now a serious risk on the people with Testezi. Last week we registered one maternal death.
Within the CDF, we can build palaces for all chiefs in our country.
Minister, when are we going to have money? When are we going to construct those people?
Catch us live on DSTV channel 272, OTV channel 28, Topstar channel 5, or visit the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook page. Parliament Television, bringing Parliament closer to you.